Okay.
Welcome, dead, not dead, and idiots, to the 69th episode of an Unearthly Podcast featuring Dark Water, written by Stephen
pudding
Moffat.
brains?
Say again?
So don't you mean pudding brains?
I try to use something new each week. We are streaming live on the 5th of November, 2014 on twitch.tv/madmat2185, and you can find our playlists at youtube.com/maninblackreviews, or like and follow us at facebook.com/unearthlypodcast and twitter.com/unearthlypod. Apparently my fingers do not like typing Twitter. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hi.
We start off our news this week with our first look at Death in Heaven. The press synopsis is as follows here. With Cybermen on the streets of London, old friends unite against old enemies, and the Doctor takes to the air in a startling new role. Can the mighty unit contain Missy? As the Doctor faces his greatest challenge, sacrifices must be made before the day is won.
And the day is won.
And I have, well, I don't know. Can we include spoilers from the last 5 minutes of the episode in our discussion of the news?
I would hold back on that, actually, until we actually do the video. And...
Okay, then in that case, I'm just going to say one word in response to that question. No, the mighty unit cannot contain Missy, and I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that they shouldn't be able to, and it's been proven fact.
All right. We got a few pictures here, but there's nothing overly revealing about any of them. A couple of obviously press photo style taken, and then a few scenes, and obviously a few scenes taken out between scenes of people getting selfies with Cybermen, and apparently Missy. Nope, that's not a phone. That's actually that little device she had in the last episode. So that's probably taken from an actual scene.
Yep.
But other than that,
Missy is screaming at the Doctor in one of the clips.
Yeah. But there's nothing really that we can... I mean, there's more spoilers in the trailer than there is in this.
Yeah.
So nothing that we really need to point out in particular. So we're going to move right along here and look at the overnight viewing figures for Dark Water, which was 5.27 million.
Yeah, which was, I think, fourth for the day after Pointless Celebrities with 5.5 million. The X Factor with 7.5 million, and Strictly Come Dancing with 9.7 million.
And Pointless Celebrities apparently had Bonnie Langford in it, which everyone will know as Mel.
Apparently, the X Factor was right up against Doctor Who. Doctor Who had 22.4% of the viewing audience, and X Factor had about 31.7% of it, which means between the two of them...
Yeah, X Factor had 7.45 million.
Yeah, so between the two of them, they had over 50% of the viewing audience on those two shows. So I'm not sure how many channels Britain has at this point, but I know at least three of them. Well, no, at least three of them are BBC.
But
I don't know about other channels.
As far as non-cable networks, they've got 5. And then there's several cable networks like Dave and stuff, which aren't usually included in these figures.
Gotcha. Do you know if BBC One HD is considered in these figures? It's probably just part of the same group.
Considered as part of BBC.
So,
I'm not BBC One broadcasts outside of HD anymore. Much like our
I know that the
digital.
I know that when they're like on the see what's or on the view this at this time blurbs, it's like watch X out at X time on BBC One and BBC One HD. So I would assume they're
it's probably a dual thing, but it's the same channel functionally.
Yeah.
So not a big difference there.
Moving on. But I'm assuming. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm assuming they're counting together in the ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Our next bit, Australia seems to be giving us less and less news. They left out the rural areas and the highest dramas of the day. But in the 5 major cities, it was the 12th highest rated program, averaging 541,000 viewers.
The Audience Appreciation Index is in for Dark Water, and it is 85, which is, I believe, The highest that we've got for the season, with 2 to 3 other episodes that have also scored that.
It's the highest for the season, tied with Mummy on the Orient Express and Flatline.
Yep.
Both of which are good episodes. I'm still not sure why Time Heist didn't make it up there, but oh well.
It got an 84, so... And moving on again, the BBC has responded to complaints for the storyline of Dark Water, which involved themes that some viewers found disturbing. Mostly the fact that the concept that people could feel themselves getting cremated. The BBC has responded to these with the following. Doctor Who is a family drama with a long tradition of tackling some of the more fundamental questions about life and death. We were mindful of the themes explored in Dark Water and are confident that they are appropriate to the context of heightened sci-fi world of the show. The scene in which a character reveals 3W's unconventional theory about the afterlife was preceded by the same character warning the Doctor and Clara several times that they were about to hear could be distressing. When the Doctor does hear these claims, he immediately pours scorn on them, dismissing them as a con and a racket. It transpires that he is correct, and the entire concept is revealed to be a scam perpetrated by Missy. We will, of course, discuss this later.
And all the British people I know made it sound like only Americans were pussies and would whine about these things, but apparently the British do too.
Yep. Lies and deceit, you're just as bad as us.
Well, I mean, if it was Mary Whitehouse or whoever's the follow-up to Mary Whitehouse messaging them in, that's tradition.
True.
Tradition.
All right, so we're going to move on from that statement to the Sharp
Flatline,
which finished the week as the 23rd most watched program on British television, according to figures from Barb.
And the 8th highest on the BBC.
Yep, top for the week was Downton Abbey, which had 10.39 million. Doctor Who was the 8th highest rated program on BBC. It had a consolidated share of 25.6% of the total audience. Moving on again, the final ratings for In the Forest of the Night are in, and it has 6.92 million who watched the UK transmission, according to consolidated figures available, to include those recording the program and those watching within 1 week of the transmission. Its final chart position should be available later this week. So it'll probably be brought up next week.
Definitely not as high as this week's episode.
And we mentioned last week we hadn't heard much out of Canada recently. Well, they've finally come in. Bell Media PR has released a statement of how the new series of Doctor Who has been received. Season 8 of Doctor Who is the most watched series in space, that's the Channel of Canada history, and Saturday Night's most watched series. It is #1 of all time. So Canada has hit epic proportions for Doctor Who fandom, now averaging 773,000 viewers for Capaldi's debut season.
So we're creating Whovians by the drove up there.
Canada.
So yeah, it's big up there, eh?
Hey there,
Going on from the ratings, we have the Doctor Who at the awards. Doctor Who has been nominated in the 2015 People's Choice Awards, which was announced on November 4th. Say that again?
That's a U.S. award, not a UK award.
Yep. And the final awards will be announced during a live broadcast on CBS on January 7. Doctor Who is up for favorite cable sci-fi/fantasy TV show, up against American Horror Story, Game of Thrones, Outlander, and The Walking Dead.
Well, that's some stiff competition.
And one of those is apparently inspired by Doctor Who. The creator of the novels, The Outlander, I guess, is an adaptation of, states the novels were inspired by companion Jamie McCrimmon.
Which is reportedly to feature Fraser Hines in a guest role. Huh. Interesting. I didn't know he was making roles anymore.
Huh.
Okay. By the way, fans can cast their votes online by going to peopleschoice.com.
Somebody's hugging their microphone.
So I'll probably be doing after the podcast. Moving on again, the first ever convention for Doctor Who fans in Germany is planned. It has been announced the first ever unofficial German Doctor Who event will take place in Kassel on 24th to 25th October 2015. The event will be called Time Lash and feature guests from classic and new series.
So last week we talked about the...
is the name of a Doctor Who radio drama done back in the 80s by Eric Soward. No, wait, no, that was an episode. That was an actual episode of the 23rd season. I was thinking of Slipback.
I was gonna say, no, that was not an audio adventure. That was actually an episode.
Yep, I got the two mixed up in my head, and I do apologize for that. But no,
But in short, Guten Tag!
Last week we had talked about the planning meeting for the first ever Canadian Doctor Who convention. Germany, I guess, couldn't let that go and is going to be having their own. So between that and the other news we've had, this is a very big year for Doctor Who growing in both Germany and Canada. So
I'm surprised they didn't call the convention Das TARDIS.
And our next bit, we have Peter Davison joins the UK Symphonic Spectacular, or to use the full name, the Doctor Who Symphonic Spectacular UK Tour. Oh no, I'm sorry. Not that he's joining. Oh no, it says to join, but he has presented the tour in Australia and New Zealand in the past, so this is not a new thing.
This is the UK version of it.
Yes, it's a new thing for him to do it in the UK, but it is not a new thing for Davison specifically.
Mm-hmm. I have not heard of this before. It looks like it's kind of a touring version of Doctor Who at the Proms.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
More or less.
Which would be interesting. And finally, we have heard that Titan Comics will be presenting new comic adventures for the Ninth Doctor, as played by Christopher Eccleston. He is to return for a brand new comic series by Titan, due to hit the bookshelves next March.
And that I think is interesting because the Ninth Doctor, compared to two of the other three Doctors that have current Titan comics ongoing series, the Ninth Doctor does not have a lot of stories, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with these.
Yep. It looks to be planned a 5-part miniseries, and this is to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Doctor Who coming back to television.
It looks like it'll probably be set between the Doctor dances and Bad Wolf, since it's featuring Captain Jack and Rose.
Yep.
Of course.
Starting in February.
Awesome.
I'm wondering, this means we will have had 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th Doctor Titan comics. Kind of wondering if when this gets past the miniseries, if they're about to announce an 8th Doctor comic.
Yeah, wondering. Or if they're going to do some classic stuff. I don't know if they have the license to, though.
Yeah, that's true. It
question.
Depends if 8th Doctor counts as classic or not. But
8th Doctor is considered
far
classic.
enough estranged.
8
yeah.
is classic War Doctor comic series.
That's
Doctor
possible.
maybe, yeah.
War Doctor. The War Doctor does have a novel out.
Yeah, the War Doctor is considered part of New Who. So, if Titan Comics license is for New Who, they could do a War Doctor comic series.
True.
But 8th Doctor is considered a classic Doctor, even though he was not in the original 26-season run. He was only in the 96 movie. He's kind of a gray area, but
yeah. But as you can tell by looking at Big Finish,
yeah, right. New Who is considered anything revealed after 2005.
So Scream of the Shelka is part of Classic Who and Big Finish then.
It's kind of considered an unbound Doctor.
True.
It's non-canonical, much like Death Comes to Time. It was planned to be the continuation of Doctor Who until BBC Wales suddenly announced it. Literally, like 1 to 2 days after that particular web thing aired.
Right.
And they're like, coming back with new animated. Aww.
And that concludes our news. There looks like. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up of general news?
Nothing in particular.
Really
Guess not.
Nope.
I mean, there's not really much going on. Oh, yeah. I actually do have something. I have been watching Star Wars Rebels, which you brought up earlier this season.
Yep.
I've been watching it, and to be honest...
Dante Bosco was in last week's episode.
Star Wars Rebels was described to me, my friends, as basically the Star Wars version of Firefly. I don't see that much. I mean,
Not
yes,
quite, yeah.
the ship does come across on the, we've got to do jobs to get food.
Mm-hmm.
But really what hits me is, it hits me more as Aladdin in space in the time.
That's how I described the opening two-parter as Aladdin in space.
It keeps going that way.
Yeah. But
I mean,
not quite as extreme, but yeah.
Yeah, but it really hits, the main character is really an Aladdin XP.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a show that plays it really safe.
Yes, it is. It's but the character's design is, I mean, if you take that character and you take Aladdin and you put them side to side, other than the stylistic art difference, they look the same. The actor,
yes.
while the same voice actor, sounds the same. And the series even refers to the character repeatedly as a street rat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Did they have
really
streets in the galaxy far, far away?
Well, and it's also the town or whatever he lives in looks like an Agrabah market.
Yes, there is that. You get back to the scenes of the capital city, and I started singing Arabian Nights. It was that bad.
I was more thinking the song Aladdin sings as he's running through the street being chased by the guard.
I'm waiting for him to get a hover droid voiced by Gilbert Gottfried. I really am.
I could use some oil over here.
But yeah, it plays it Disney safe. Occasionally, they do stuff that makes you wonder, what the hell were they thinking when they did this compared to Star Wars canon. But if you're really a huge Star Wars fan, it's enjoyable to watch. I'm not sure I would recommend it though.
I've been enjoying watching it. It's not up there like Arrow or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where I'm like, I'll drop what I'm doing to watch it. But if I see a new episode has come up, like when I'm checking my, when I'm checking on Saturdays for the latest episode of Doctor Who, I'll usually watch Rebels right afterward because I watch it on the same place.
The ABC release of the premiere did get James Earl Jones.
Oh, I need to.
That's right. There was an extra scene. I have not seen that scene.
I've seen it. It's right at the beginning of that version. It's
Okay.
not really that important. But really, that's all I had to say about it. Because I'd put my opinion in for most of the other stuff, but I hadn't really seen Rebels. Now I have.
May I add actually a different show that I don't think anyone else has mentioned yet?
I
have seen the first episode of Constantine.
I watched the first one. I haven't watched the second yet.
I haven't watched the second one yet either, but I really need to sit down and do that. Because, oh my god, the first episode blew me away.
Yeah, it seemed pretty good so far.
Huh?
What channel is Constantine
I
on?
believe it's NBC.
Okay, that means that
it's on Hulu?
I could probably see if it's on there on demand.
I believe it is on there on demand. That's where I saw the first episode.
It's on Hulu, but it's just like any other show. You have to wait 24 hours before it shows up there for free.
Well, that's generally the same with on demand.
Yeah, it's just it's on their website.
Yeah, you don't have to go through Hulu. You don't need a Hulu account.
Well, you don't need a Hulu account to watch. It's not Hulu Plus, just regular Hulu.
But on demand will give it to you. Generally, if you have a cable service, so I usually go through that.
And I will say that I have a odd history with Constantine. I saw the movie first, and the movie's okay. It's a entryway movie.
I enjoyed the movie when it was in theaters, but my taste in movies has changed a lot. Like, I've become a lot more. I'm trying to figure. I pretty much enjoyed any movie I watched in the theaters back then, whereas now I'm a bit more discriminating.
You're more of a critic.
You've become more critical in your mind, but
yes.
I haven't watched it lately, but I do know that it was a good entryway for me because after seeing the movie, I was interested in the comic books, and since then I've gotten like 5 or 6 of the big collector books, the ones where they would have multiple books in one soft cover, fully illustrated, colored, and everything else. And
Okay.
I have to say that they definitely took liberties with the movie, but they definitely are not taking that many liberties with the TV series. A lot of
That's
this
that's
is
that's
dead
generally
on.
the case. They
Oh,
have a lot more creative control usually over a TV show than a movie.
well, I
Which, by
also
the way,
I,
with Constantine, that means that there are 4 live action, I think DC owned shows that I'm watching on a weekly basis now.
well, technically it's Vertigo, but
Ooh.
it is owned underneath
Vertigo is part of
DC.
DC now.
Yeah, as I was saying, it's underneath DC, but it's not actually run by DC. But
Wasn't that the point of the New 52 to merge Vertigo and DC together?
and then Virgo just went after they saw what they did to their stuff in the New 52. But anyway, from what I've
Oh,
seen of the TV series, I really need to get back to it. It looks really good so far.
Mm.
this ties into both sci-fi news and what we were talking about a minute ago. I just came across a photo on Facebook. It shows Anakin Skywalker. I had no strings, but now I'm free. Cut to Darth Vader. There are no strings on me. Although there are kind of, that's not quite true because there are strings on Darth Vader, just not physical ones.
Wah wah wah.
With that, I think it's about time for the summary-ish.
Okay,
Yup.
so we're actually moving on to the episode now. All right, so Darkwater. We open the episode with Clara calling Danny in order to confess her sins to him, but first she decides to tell Danny she loves him, honestly. Danny's a bit shocked by this, even though Clara had already confessed all this to him way back in The Caretaker, and promptly forgets all the safety videos that his school shows about looking both ways before crossing the street. That's right, Danny Pink joins original Pete Tyler in becoming Doctor Who secondary characters that commit Darwin suicide by oncoming vehicle. And at least we saw a little of Danny first. Clara, of course, is traumatized. First by shutting down, then by concocting an elaborate scheme to trap the Doctor outside the TARDIS in the middle of an active volcano. She tells him to fix it or she'll throw away all to the keys to the TARDIS, trapping him there. But the Doctor isn't having any of it, and in their argument, all the keys get tossed. However, in Dallas fashion, it turns out this is all a dream, a hallucination created by the device Clara used to try to knock out the Doctor in the first place. Feeling guilty, but unrepentant, Clara asks the Doctor what next, in which he replies, "Go to hell." It takes a bit for Clara to realize he means this literally. Go to hell, or the afterlife, or whatever, and find Danny Pink. They use the telepathic interface, from Listen, remember, to steer the TARDIS into a lobby. Meanwhile, Danny finds himself in an office getting interviewed. He is informed that he is dead. He has ceased to be. He is an ex-Danny. And looking out the window, he finds he's in a sphere on the inside. He's told he's in the afterlife, aka the Promised Land, or as we know it, the Nethersphere. Investigating this lobby, the Doctor and Clara discovers the place seems to be a mausoleum with skeletons in water tanks for some weird reason. As they explore and hypothesize, they fail to notice one of the skeletons follows them as they move. They discover the place is called the 3W, which we can only assume is the reverse 3M. And it has the motto, "Death is not an end, but we can help with that." After a bit of a promotional spiel by a holographic interface, they come in contact with Missy, who identifies herself as Mobile Intelligent Systems Interface, after kissing the stuffing out of the Doctor. They spend a bit trying to find out who's in charge, and Missy introduces them to Dr. Chang, but not before Missy puts the Doctor's hand to her heart, which shocks the Doctor. Back in the Nethersphere, Danny is getting settled into an apartment. His case handler asks if he's killed anyone, triggering some flashbacks. Danny is informed he has a request to be met by someone, which turns out to be the boy Danny had inadvertently killed on his tour of duty. They have a conversation which involves the boy eventually running off and bringing back a lot of painful memories for Danny. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Clara discover that the water in those tanks isn't water, but a form of X-ray water that sees through organic material, and the bodies are in a mechanical case. They inquire about the term 3W, which they are informed refers to 3 words a scientist claims to have heard via radio waves after death. Don't cremate me. The doctor immediately scoffs this as a con, and both they and Danny are informed that the dead, i.e. Danny, can still feel what their body does after they died. Thus, if they're cremated, they can feel it. Danny is currently feeling cold because he's being stored in a cold place. Danny is then informed he has a call from the living, and a Wi-Fi call is started between him and Clara. The doctor asks Clara to be skeptical, and Clara tries to get Danny to answer a question only he would know. While this is going on, Missy pushes the buttons and the skeletons stand. The dark water begins to drain, and the doctor wants another look. The doctor and Chang encounters Missy, and Chang reveals that Missy isn't a droid, and is in fact his boss. After a bit of flirtatious banter, Missy kills Chang, and the skeletons are revealed to be Cybermen. The Netherfield is revealed to be a matrix data slice, a Gallifreyan hard drive that is storing consciousness of the dead while their bodies are cyber-converted. The doctor inquires how Missy got a hold of Time Lord technology, and Missy reveals she is a Time Lord, which is why the doctor was so surprised when feeling her hearts. That she's a Time Lady, the one that the doctor abandoned. The doctor runs out a door and finds himself outside of St. Paul's Cathedral. Clara's call ends inconclusively as Danny couldn't find much more to say than "I love you," which Clara wouldn't accept. She terminates the call, leaving Danny crying in his apartment. He gets an offer from his case handler to erase his pain, and we leave him hovering over the yes button on the iPad he's handed. Clara, meanwhile, finds herself trapped in a room with one Cyberman behind glass as the doors open and all the Cybermen begin to march on London. Outside, the doctor tries to get the people to leave, to flee from the Cybermen, but Missy stops them, saying it's too late. All of their dead, more populous than the living, are marching. The doctor asks again who she is, and she says again Missy, short for mistress, as she couldn't use the name master anymore. And we leave the doctor staring at her in sheer horror.
This is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to want to go scene by scene rather than stream of consciousness, because there's quite a lot of
and I'd like to point out at this point that we are not actually rating this episode at the end of this. We can give some thoughts, though they're not going to be final thoughts, as we'll probably come back and reflect on this in the next podcast following the next episode. But it's really hard to rate this episode without knowing where the plot is fully going.
Yes.
Yep.
So, yes, let's start out with the Clara-Danny phone call. Anybody see this coming?
I didn't. I have to honestly say I did not expect that to happen.
I was expecting Clara and Danny to talk about lying and or the truth at some point in this two-parter, which is what Clara was partially going to talk about. Although one of the sticky notes is potentially, depending on how you interpret it, could be the inspiration for the conversation.
Which one?
The only sticky note that is not explicitly referring to somebody, that is more vague, says 3 months on it, which has been it has been interpreted, and I'm not saying I 100% agree, but I could see it being possible. With it, but the internet seems to at least partially believe that it means she's 3 months pregnant.
It's possible. Although
it could also be referring to the fact that Danny mentioned it had been months since Clara had last spoken to the doctor as the Forest of the Night, so it might have been 3 months that she was lying to him.
That's
not entirely sure.
It's going to be revealed in there. If it turns out she's pregnant, that's actually going to be a little disappointing for me. Because didn't Moffat already go through this in Series 6?
But it wouldn't be surprising.
Wouldn't be surprising. I'm just thinking it's redundant.
As long as the baby doesn't turn out to be the master, I'm fine.
Well, song.
The baby can't be River Song again, I hope.
Wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny.
If the baby turns out to be Amelia Pond, I'm walking.
Walking dude, I'll wrap my lips around a pistol. Jesus. It's just stupid is what that's reaching at that point.
Don't be silly. They'll make it Rory.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense at all, though.
Now, there's a few things that do actually bother me, but I'll talk about that later. It's about something else.
Okay.
Yeah. So, here's Danny, trained soldier, is used to, being innately aware of his surroundings at all times, walks out in front of a car.
Do we know that he walked out, do we know that he wasn't, supposed to walk and someone just didn't stop when at a red light or something?
Well, he wasn't on a crosswalk.
I don't know if they even have crosswalks in...
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Come on. Remember your
Or,
Beatles road cover.
True.
Was he on the sidewalk and a car veered off the road?
He was on the sidewalk when we saw him talking to Clara. He was in the middle of the road when we saw him dead.
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, I saw him stepping off the road in the last
I
clip.
remember seeing that. He was actually in the road by the time he stops, and then that's when the car would have hit him.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. You would think his combat training would have actually caused him to, become aware of the car before it hit him.
I find it a little strange that his first thought is not, to curse or to go oof, but to preserve the phone by throwing it back onto the sidewalk.
Or yet another option would have been to dodge!
Yeah, the idea isn't that he threw the phone, it's that the phone got thrown when he got hit. In other words, his hand spasmed and let it go.
He failed his spot check, he rolled his dexterity check, and he only got enough of a high enough roll to save the phone.
Well, it wasn't an iPhone then.
Point.
One of the things that did bother me was that there was no sound of a collision.
Yeah.
Squealing.
Yeah, at that point, the phone completely goes silent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not something
And
that phone
I
would do.
think that was largely because, considering the subject matter of the episode, they didn't want to include any more death than necessary, like obvious children would notice death.
Well, it's also because they didn't want to reveal what happened until the lady told Clara. But it does kind of give it a little bit of an unreality sense.
Yeah.
Not enough that it that it breaks my suspension of disbelief, but
But enough that there's an artificial tint to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually very similar to it. I was realizing again as I was replaying Pokemon X, and there's a scene. I'm assuming nobody's worried about spoilers of that at this point, right? It's an
We're talking about
year
this
anyway.
episode, so no, we're not worried about spoilers.
Okay. But there's a scene where essentially the villain team changed dozens of Pokemon to rocks that are intended to suck out their life force for an ultimate weapon. And you're not allowed to actually go to where these rocks are during that part of the game. I think because they're afraid of traumatizing children of Pokemon being chained up to be killed. I think part of the reason that scene went that way is for that same reason. They can talk about it, but they're afraid to make it obvious.
So
in a children/family media.
Fighting slaves, but no Poke bondage.
Kinky.
Okay. So is there anything else we want to say about this call?
My initial reaction was, yay.
Yeah, I was actually kind of relieved that he was dead.
I kind of wanted to hear where Clara was going with this, but she never
I didn't really care. I don't care for Mr. Pink.
I'm like, he just killed him? I can't believe he just killed him.
Thank goodness.
Drop open.
Oh my god, you killed Danny! You bastard!
Danny or Mickey?
Well, it wasn't really that. It's that I thought Danny was one of Moffat's magic characters. And was thus too good to be killed.
Nope.
No, he was pretty much refrigerator bait.
Yeah.
He was a red shirt.
Yeah, and we didn't know it.
Although the name Pink should have given that away, actually, now in hindsight.
It's why he wasn't. It's why he didn't travel on the TARDIS.
Although part of his death did not make sense to me.
Other than the
Because
film?
didn't we have Listen? Didn't we have his descendant?
Time can be rewritten.
Except there was no time travel involved in this.
No, but Clara distracted him when he wouldn't have otherwise been distracted in the original timeline.
But Clara's supposed to be the mother, as far as we knew.
As far as we knew.
There's still time to rewrite everything
Also,
anyways.
yeah, there's still time. I mean,
He's supposedly technically not really dead anyway, because it's technically in that sphere thing.
We'll talk about it, but there are tinges of, Greek mythology going to the underworld to bring the damsel back to life in this episode, so maybe that's where they're going with next episode. Maybe Danny will be fine at the end. It's not like Moffat hasn't made companions that die and come back over and over.
Technically, Russell T Davies had too. And was more blatant about it.
His was an explicit magic power, not plot magic.
Yeah. I think after you're knocked out of the building for like the 10th time, it's explicitly a part of your character now.
So it's actually, though, that's kind of interesting because both the showrunners of Doctor Who has had to include one Kenny character.
In their own way, yeah.
Jack was Russell T Davies' Kenny. He could die, and he came back. Rory was Stephen Moffat's Kenny.
The Master was Sayward's Kenny.
The Master has had mystical Kenny powers for a while, and it predates Sayward. So,
no, I'm just saying the Sayward era, I think, is where he was most known for. It's impossible to escape that death. Oh, by the way, I'm back.
Well, really, though, that's kind of a comic book trope, really.
Yeah.
I'm back, Doctor.
And it's kind of part of the fact that the Master was always kind of uber campy during the Ainley era. So he did kind of come off like a cheesy comic book villain.
Do I need a reason, Doctor? Of course I escaped.
Comprising elaborate death traps to kill the... I mean, come on. He should have been in like 40 Superman serials. This trap will get you now, Superman!
We'll be talking about him in a bit. So that we're ready, I think, to move on to Clara's next scene, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's her elaborate plan to get the Doctor to fix things.
Here's where Clara essentially becomes a failed super villainess.
She goes nuts.
Yeah, this was pretty much her breakdown. Like, she went off the deep end. She was broken.
So she calls the Doctor, finally gets him after the Doctor's doing God knows what to the rest of the universe. Making the universe hate Scotsmen, probably. So he shows up, and she decides that she wants to go make a trip to a volcano. While she's doing this, she's flitting around the TARDIS, picking up all the extra keys, asks the Doctor for a sleep patch, claiming to have problems sleeping, uses the sleep patch, and I'll say that in air quotes, to knock the Doctor out after they arrive inside an active volcano, knocks the Doctor out, steals his key, and when the Doctor wakes up, she's standing there holding all 7 keys, going, fix this. Every time you tell me no, I'm going to throw away a key. I mean, this is like convoluted, this is crazy stuff.
Although I've got to say, the twist of that scene makes the whole scene make more sense to me, because I was wondering how she was running around the console room, pulling things out of their hiding spots without the Doctor noticing, while having a conversation with him.
The thing is,
apparently he did notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, he noticed, and obviously the patch didn't work on him. Still, it was kind of a cop-out having it all be a, quote, dream, but I could tell why they had to.
Yeah.
Although, in
Partially because
retrospect,
Clara would be completely broken as a returning character if she had actually done those things. Like,
the thing is,
you can't come back from that.
the thing is, she should have broken down there in the volcano. The doctor looked at her, looked at the TARDIS, snapped his fingers, hauled her in, and said, "Yeah, you forgot about that, didn't you?"
But I think
I was
think
actually
that
expecting
still,
that too.
I think that was still a psychic link between the Doctor and the key. Like, if he doesn't have the key, I don't think he had that capability anyway.
I think it's a psychic link between the Doctor and the TARDIS, personally, but
Although my theory in that is also drawing from the Big Finish Audio Go version of that technique. So that you could probably call that's probably more headcanon than official.
More or less.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's always been a establishment of a level of trust between the Doctor and the TARDIS. So
Dr. Cox whistles. Dr. Capaldi snaps his fingers.
anyway, either way, it was a dream, and all the keys are safe.
Mm.
And
one thing I noticed about that scene is, did you notice the somewhat subtle reference to deep breath in there? There was the ongoing thing in Deep Breath with the don't start with your final threat. You have nowhere to go except to prove that you're not going to follow through. And here there's the do as you're told or stop threatening me. There is no other option. I feel like they were probably intended to be parallels.
Somewhat. But, the Doctor does call Clara's bluff, and she does go through with it. One other thing that bothered me in my second viewing of this particular episode, but I'm writing it off as being dramatic license, is being that close to an active volcano. That entire conversation should have happened while they were coughing their lungs out.
I was kind of thinking the same thing too. Also, something I would like to note that I at least heard while this was going on is that one of the first sound effects, I think, of the keys being thrown into the lava was the same splatter sound, which is just overly cartoonish and really didn't fit.
But again, it was a dream sequence.
Yeah.
True, but if it happens to remind me of a review of a very bad video game with the exact same sound effect, that's its own fault.
But yeah, I see what you mean, Ron. But at the same time, I don't think they've ever treated lava realistically in Doctor Who.
But yeah, again though, dream sequence.
Dream sequence.
It's all in Clara's head.
See, when they said volcano, my first thought was, oh shit, they're going to Pompeii. He's going undercover.
You know what my first thought was? And I forgot to mention this because this was a joke I was going to use in the summary, is that apparently TARDIS keys are made of the same thing that the One Ring is, and can only be destroyed by throwing it into a crack in Mount Doom.
Not the process. Oh.
So, my mental image is Clara giving the standoff to the Doctor, and meanwhile you see two hobbits crawling by on the other side of the lava flow.
Stop her, Mr. Frodo!
Well, the Doctor does wear a ring, although I'm not sure if this Doctor does.
Some Doctors do, some Doctors don't. The first Doctor did.
Then again, I think by the 9th Doctor era, it was a watch.
A watch?
Yeah, that the TARDIS could home in on. I think it became a watch by then.
Oh,
then again, the one I'm explicitly thinking of that happening in was a Stephen Moffat essentially fan fiction that eventually was adapted to an episode. So I'm not sure how it actually was, and if there were any 9th Doctor spin-off materials mentioning that.
No. Nothing I can remember. The ring worn by the first Doctor actually used to be the emergency control to open the TARDIS doors if they lost power, and later this became a standard hand crank by the Third Doctor era. And mind you, the TARDIS keys have changed a few times too.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
And so has the TARDIS lock, because originally only the Doctor and Susan could open the TARDIS doors, because the lock had a special mechanism that you had to put the key in exactly the right position to open the doors.
Yep, or it would melt the lock mechanism.
Yep. So, the TARDIS key thing has evolved over the years. But still, the whole concept that the only thing that could destroy the TARDIS keys was freaking lava just kind of hit me as very Lord of the Rings.
Oops.
Now, the thing is, Clara's response to doing this is the first time I think her relationship with Danny Pink has struck me as believable.
Yeah, to some degree, yes.
We've mentioned before that we really don't see much chemistry between Clara and Danny, at least they're actors.
Yeah, practically none at all. And
Yeah.
a few times we do get some of it, it's either really clunky or just really not that good.
In The Caretaker, when she's finally forced into saying that she loves him, it does seem a bit forced and a bit stilted, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Here, her reaction to doing this is somebody who has lost somebody who they are really in love with and are willing to do anything to get them back.
This was already after she had spent a scene or so acting creepy with the whole. She's basically not said, well, at least not outwardly mourning that he died, but mourning that he died in a normal way.
She's actually kind of suffering from what I refer to as the heroic BSOD, blue screen of death. She's basically just shut down. You notice the parallel between her looking at the memorial site for Danny Pink and in Flatline, where she's looking at the memorial site for the people that suffered there.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else catch that?
A little bit, yeah.
Because, there she's looking at it, and she's looking at it curious because she's not sure what's going on. And here it's somebody that she does know and does care about. And so really what happens is she basically just shuts down. She's probably not teaching at that point because she's too much of a mess. And really, she's kind of waiting for the Doctor because he's her only hope. And whoa, some echo there?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of that,
Yeah,
too.
there was some.
And so then she concocts the scheme, and what's the Doctor's response? Is he goes ahead and does it. I think previous Doctors, after what she did, may have actually did the kind of get out that she was expecting.
Depends on the Doctor and depends on the time frame of their character arc.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you think about it, the 12th Doctor has been a complete and total dick for the entire season.
More often than not, and mostly only on the outside.
Although that's been, I think, toned down more the past few episodes.
Yes, it has been a little bit.
We've been seeing more of the Doctor's human side, so to speak. I am not implying in any way that the Doctor is half human. That's the stupid movie. Kick Seagal in the nuts and move on. But no, but I mean, the more of his, compassionate side has been coming out. The side that he's been trying to hold in.
Yeah.
If you think about it, this is kind of the Doctor's second childhood that wasn't senility. He's been given a whole new lease on life, so he's kind of a teenager again. So he's kind of in his new sullen phase.
Yes. Which is the way he started out at the beginning, anyway.
Yeah, so now we're actually seeing him mellow a bit and starting to show a bit of heart. And so, yeah, it's like, do you believe that I wouldn't try to help you regardless? He's obviously hurt that she did try to betray him. But he's going to do it anyway. He doesn't quite say it right, because the first thing out of his mouth is, go to hell. Not, we go to hell. Go to hell.
Well, I think she had asked him, "What do we do next?" or "Where do we go from here?" something like that.
Yeah, and he said, "Go to hell." And all the fan base that was waiting for Capaldi to say something like that, the entire season went, "Yes!"
He finally semi-cursed.
Now call her a fucktard. Yes.
Now call the Daleks a bunch of fucking a-holes.
She walks out the TARDIS door. He says, "Fuckity bye."
Fuckity bye.
Oh my fucking god, it's the fucking Cybermen again!
She's in her apartment and Dr. looks at her, fuckity bye, click. That'd be so wrong. So, once again, we see the telepathic circuits in use.
Chekhov's gun, away!
The season-wide Chekhov's gun, yes. That was the entire reason they were established way back in Lisbon.
You know what those telepathic circuits might have been good at finding? Heathrow.
Up and listen is why weren't they used before?
Son of a bitch!
Doctor spent an entire couple of seasons trying to get to the Eye of Orion.
Son of a bitch!
Here, Romana, concentrate on the sex segment of the key to time. But no, they had other Chekhov's devices for all of this. But now suddenly you have telepathic circuits that will make the TARDIS fly anywhere.
As long as you turn off all the safeties, at least.
Apparently.
Because they've mentioned that twice now.
The steering was broken, and the Doctor could never get anywhere? Remember those days?
Yeah.
God. That's just so long.
Granted, during those days, the Peter Capaldi was a child watching Doctor Who, but still.
Yeah. And when they arrive, Capaldi mentions that the Navcom is offline. And that he had to do this the old school.
The one from In the Forest of the Night is what he's referring to. The Tom device.
Yes, but
not Thomas the Child, though.
Yeah, thank God. That was the ultimate and stupid. Anyway. But it occurs to me that must be one of the new panels that we've seen. Because, the last incarnation of the TARDIS, you now have the two side panels. And I guess one of those must be the Navcom.
And, of course, he had to mention that was offline because otherwise it would have said they were in the middle of London.
Yeah. You are under St. Paul's Cathedral. You have reached your destination.
Wah.
So, they get out. I'm not even going to go with the scene about Danny getting his welcome to the afterlife bit, because we've seen this scene before by other people.
By hundreds of other people. And actually, I would also argue that a couple of people might have done it better than him.
I found it interesting that they offered him coffee rather than tea.
The good coffee.
The good coffee, yes, but still, I kind of thought it would be tea.
Yeah, but coffee's been making inroads.
Yeah.
Not to mention he is a soldier. He needs to tweak.
Curse you. The Nethersphere, where all the coffee is Starbucks. Starbucks Corporation.
Oh god, no. That's Starbucks coffee.
Well,
in the Nethersphere, there's a Starbucks across the street from a Starbucks.
They have Apple, so if they have Apple and then it would be. There are dead hipsters too.
I'm sorry. Anybody here know the webcomic PvP Online?
Yes, that's...
I'm now thinking of Brett Sienna with his glasses and holding the Starbucks cup in the Nethersphere.
Yes. Speaking of PvP, now that those glasses are back, I'm waiting for the panda to come back.
Oh. I've not read that in a long time.
Oh, I got you. I've been following it pretty much daily.
Yeah, it's one of those that eventually I will spend a month just catching up on it.
That's what I need to do with Control-Alt-Delete.
I haven't even read that one, but we are off topic.
Way off topic.
Yeah, but so yes, so the doctor walks around in this. I mean, let's face it, it looked like an office block lobby. You know, marble floors, and then you got the glass tanks with the skeletons and chairs.
Cubicles.
Once you're a member of this office, you're there for the afterlife.
I like you. You almost get the impression. Welcome to the London branch of Wolfram and Hart.
I don't know. When the skeletons start moving, I start to get a little bit of an Evil Dead vibe.
Speaking of which, I was meaning. I mean, this is a little far ahead for what we're talking about, but when the skeletons start moving, I was meaning to watch to see if the finger touches the button or if they leave that gap where the metal should be.
No, it's Missy's finger that touches the button.
No, each skeleton pushes their own button.
Oh.
Like
They do it from a distance, so you can't really tell for sure.
I didn't notice that. I noticed there was one where Missy reached out and put her hand on the glass.
Yeah, I think she activated the Cybermen, and then the Cybermen's drained their own tanks.
Okay, that I didn't see.
It's hard to tell. It's from a distance, as I recall.
So, Missy in this is effing brilliant.
Yes, she is, and it's we really didn't have much to go off before, but based on this episode, Michelle Gomez is brilliant.
Oh God, yes.
She's also quick as lightning, by the way.
She plays at least 3 or 4 different roles in this episode.
As the same character.
As the same character, but the character mimicking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One of those things the character mimics is Roger Delgado, I'd say. So
that's what I'm really hoping.
That's the vibe I was getting at the end.
Okay, since we're kind of skipping around on here, yes, Missy is the master. The master is now a female.
Which means the Doctor could end up as one too.
Yes, that is what people are speculating. Is that's what it's going to open the door for? That it's essentially them testing the waters.
Yeah.
And that we'll see the 13th or 14th Doctor as a woman. The concept of the Doctor being a woman is not not a new one. It has been speculated in media and fan bases as far back as when Tom Baker stepped down.
It is worth noting that I think the first time it happened on a popular Doctor Who special that was not canon but a special was a well-known thing written by Stephen Moffat.
And one that we've done a review for at the end of last season.
And yes. And now the Master can use the line, "They're not breasts, okay? They're Dalek bumps." except they're Cybermen bumps.
They're cyber bumps.
It would have been funny, if she had muttered that line. What do you think they are? Dalek bumps?
Yes.
As just a side reference, as muttering it under her breath. I actually kind of hope we see that line next week.
And that would be fair enough, considering one of the sticky notes was referencing a scene from I think it was Doctor Who at the Proms or something.
What's that?
It was hyperspace body swap ticket. I think that was Doctor.
I missed that one. I have to go back and rewatch that now.
What I did was the second time I watched it, I found a list that someone had made. It was like on Tumblr or some other site or some blog about every sticky note in the room.
I'm pretty sure a few of the sticky notes added were just added as they needed for stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of them were just episodes of things that happened in various series. Yeah. They probably just added a bunch of extra things for the sake of having extra things.
I mean, if you look at the diagrams and stuff in Next Generation, there's a lot of stuff in there that should not exist in Star Trek canon. Like, apparently there's a TARDIS on one of the cutaway things of the Enterprise D.
Okay.
And there's a engineering scene that has the status of the infinite improbability drive. Both of which we know do not actually exist on the Enterprise D. They're jokes.
True.
They're basically studio in-jokes, and that's probably what a few of those tickets were.
True, yeah.
Or a few of those posties.
Right.
So, yeah, the body swap ticket was probably a Proms reference, but was also just an in-joke. But no, Missy is freaking brilliant. When she first of all starts acting like the droid, she starts kind of doing a Data. You noticed that?
Yes.
Just about, yeah.
Although
Her head
I didn't think when I rewatched it, did she use apostrophes?
I don't think so.
Ah.
But I was rewatching this, and I just had to smirk almost that entire chain of conversation. The whole who's in charge? I'm in charge. And so who maintains your system? My heart is maintained by the doctor. So what? Doctor who? Dr. Chang. I'm just like laughing my ass off. She is very amusing.
Yeah.
And not in the John Sims evil for the lulz way.
No.
No, definitely not. Thank goodness.
A little bit of Ainley, but even there, still more serious.
Yeah.
Yes. She's more serious. I think she's still badass crazy. I think she is absolutely cracked. But she's not Sims cracked.
Yeah, we'll find out just how cracked and why, probably by the end of the next episode.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious that she's gone a bit Yandere. I've mentioned this before. She has this bizarre love-hate relationship going on with the Doctor.
But that's not new either. They're just more explicit about it since it's a female.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, even as the fact that she has referred to off-camera, or not off-camera, but away from
the boyfriend thing, that's...
And if you remember her looking and laughing, that was obviously not a sane laughter back in the end of that episode.
Well, has the Master's laughter ever been sane laughter? Except for maybe
if you look at her eyes, they aren't sane.
I'm just saying, if you're... I guess you could refer to the Master in the early 70s as somewhat sane, if sociopathic. After that, I would never refer to him as sane.
Diabolical. He's not take a step back.
But when you get to the Anthony Ainley point...
Her laughter style, the abruptness of it, is kind of jokery in that, wow, I need to get out of here. Whereas Sims is just having crazy party. You know?
Yeah.
Hers is more, I'm normal? No, I'm not. Which is a Yandere trait, kind of. Mind you, I'm enjoying the crap out of this because it makes sense to me that the Master's sanity would be completely and totally, utterly unhinged by now. Because let's take a look at the Master's life. He's lived. He went evil. He regenerated a bunch of times. He died.
He refused to die and fought for more generations.
As a slug thing. Well, first he stole a body, then he died, came back as the slug thing, stole another body, got digested by the TARDIS, got resurrected by the Time Lords, turned himself human and hid, came back, regenerated again, tried to take over the universe.
Became a lich.
Yeah. Tried to take over the universe, died, became a lich, dragged frickin' Rassilon back into the Time War, And God knows what had happened to him since then, apparently involving at least one regeneration, which means he got a body back, into a woman. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mind is on the woohoo list now.
Now, I kind of, and I don't think we're ever going to see this scene, but I would so love to see the scene in which, say, I assume that Rassilon ended up forcing the Master to regenerate, and that he then, or she then escaped from there, but I would love to see how that happened.
I'm pretty sure it was the fact that I can't kill you like this for whatever reason you're refusing to die, so I'm going to force you into a new lifeline so I can kill you.
He did have a new body. I mean, he had a new body and then disguised himself as human immediately. So John Sims was essential. Well, yeah, John Sims then would have been his 14th form, which makes Missy probably the 15th.
No, John Sims would have been 15th.
Yana would be
13.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Wait. Okay, yeah, because that's right. The 13th.
Actually, if you're counting stolen bodies, it's even more than that.
Oh, no, yeah, but I'm saying in terms of actual Time Lord regenerations, I'm saying that if we assume that the Rotting Master was the Matt Smith of the Masters, Yana becomes the Peter Capaldi of the Masters.
Right, which would have been his 14th form. And that, by the way,
14th
is Derek Jackby. So then Derek Jackby regenerates into Sims, which would make him the 15th. Although there's technically 2 tacked-on add-on stolen bodies in there.
Right. But they don't use up a regeneration.
I'm still kind of curious about whether or not he may have stolen the body of a lady Time Lord, of a Lady Lord. Well,
it's possible.
Lady Time.
Although I'm not sure he still has body-stealing capability.
Because he was pretty messed up when he was in his Lich form.
Yeah.
Very true. We don't know what powers that's given him.
Right.
But I don't think it's the same as having the powers of the Keepership of Traken.
Yeah. It's still, it would be kind of interesting to see if they decide to actually leave some room for the Ronnie or for one of the other Time Ladies to show up.
For all we know, he got his hands on Rassilon's glove during the fight or something. Or like the toothpick of Rassilon and it fixed him or something.
That's quite possible. That's quite possible. That he, got himself thrown into one of these Time Lord artifacts and it just forced him into a brand new regeneration cycle. And suddenly he came out of it a woman. He came out of it, Lumley-fied, if you want. And came out Michelle Gomez, and basically Mind went snap. I mean, his mind was hanging by a thread as it was.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, I've got bumps.
I still have difficulty considering any master post-Deadly Assassin sane in most traditional manners of using the word.
Yes, but particularly insane. But I think, shreds of sanity there are gone.
At this point, we're just looking at different versions of insane. We've gone through Ainley's version of insane. We've gone through Eric Roberts' version of insane. And we've gone through John Sims' version of insane. Now we're at Michelle Gomez's version of insane.
Yeah, I may be just a little bitter because Moffat did it before I could. Anyway.
Just a little.
What really bothers me, and this is kind of wondering what's coming up in the upcoming episode, and I'm hoping Moffat will explain this, is why is the Master working with the Cybermen?
Yes.
Yes, that needs to be explained. That definitely needs to be explained. One does wonder.
I mean, is this all an elaborate trap to kill the Doctor? Because I thought we were past that point.
I was kind of hoping we were past that.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind
of an Ainley thing.
I can't imagine what he would do if the Earth were just populated by, billions of Cybermen. I guess he would hollow out the Earth, put an engine in it, and drive it around.
I don't know if you've heard any of the trailers or anything for the upcoming episode.
I don't think I have.
I've seen the trailer about Clara ranting? Nothing that seemed to...
I watched the full BBC One trailer, and I listened to the BBC One radio trailer.
Okay.
I've got a couple of spoilers, but I'm going to save them for the end of the podcast.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, speaking of which, we were in the scene with the doctor talking with Missy and Dr. Chang. One thing I liked about that, considering all of the spoiling BBC had done by that point, was the doctor's walking, like, there's something I'm missing. And then he closes the door, and we see essentially two Cybermen eyes staring out of the door.
You know,
with
I
the
saw
double
that
doors.
scene. I'm looking at it, and I'm going, how the hell did I miss that?
Right?
Because we had seen a single
We had
door.
seen the 3W logo a few times. Yeah.
I've seen the circle with a smaller circle a couple times. I kind of like, looks familiar.
It wasn't me, because we'd seen it on the 3W logo, so it's just their logo. Oh, it's just their logo. Then you see the two of them opposite, like
Right.
Cyber Eyes, and I'm just like, oh God, why didn't I notice that? Dumbass.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
Although I noticed that this is apparently another new take on the Cybermen, that I think might just date back to the Moffat era or not, because back in the RTD era, Cybermen didn't actually have the skeleton in them.
No, it was that started in the Pandorica Opens.
Yes, that has started since Pandora.
So
Yeah,
basically, it's saying that this is Moffat's take on the Mondasian Cybermen.
Yeah. Which still doesn't make sense from what we've heard of the Mondasian Cybermen. But we will discuss that when we discuss spare parts in a few weeks.
Yes.
Speaking of which, did anybody say excellent in this episode?
No.
Not the more of
no. See,
we still have
somebody
next
should.
episode.
Yes, that is
We
true.
haven't actually heard any of the Cybermen speak or anything.
We haven't heard delete. We haven't heard. We have heard upgrade, but only loosely.
Only by Missy's mouth,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
You know what? And I just realized the Master is smart enough that with that Gallifreyan device, I could see like a computer virus that takes over the army of Cybermen just as they win, to turn them all into obedient servants of the mistress.
That's kind of what I'm wondering is her plan.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
also a possibility.
She's going to double cross them by making them all loyal to her. The item used, the Matrix hack. This is actual canonical stuff, which I got to give Moffat kudos for. To give you all a history check, the Matrix was first used in The Deadly Assassin as being a repository for basically the memories and experiences of dead Time Lords.
That's right. I recall that now.
So this is the same essential device as the Matrix. Is it? What do they? Yeah. Okay. I was about to say the Matrix of Leadership, but I think that was Transformers.
That's Transformers. Yeah, the Panoptic Net was also known as the Matrix. The Master had access to it in The Deadly Assassin because Chancellor Goth, who he was working with, gave him a direct link. And he did try to kill the Doctor in the Matrix. We see the Matrix again the next 2 seasons later, when the Doctor is fighting the Sontarans in the invasion of
Time.
The invasion of time. Thank you. Where he consults the Matrix for the stats for the DMAT gun. So it's also basically the Lord President gets a coronet that he can use to consult the Matrix for information. We then do not see the Matrix again until the infamous 23rd season, where they're pulling data from the Matrix for the Doctor's trial, and it discovers that the Master has completely hacked the Matrix and is basically...
I thought it was the Valyard.
No, the Master was working with the Valyard and then turned on him.
So the Master was the one who was changing history in the Matrix?
Yes. He was the one that was altering what was going on inside the Matrix.
So that's what I get for not watching the last 2 episodes of that season.
Yep.
Yes, that is what you get for not paying attention, Bill.
I spoiled it for you, Bill.
Oh no, you spoiled Trial of a Time Lord. How will I get by?
What a damn shame.
Yeah. The master pops up on the screen and basically points out the main key, the fact that the Valyard is a later version of Doc.
Like I've half of that has been made into YouTube quotes anyway, so that's you're just explaining the part that hasn't.
Yeah, but he was coming to them from the Matrix. So
Gotcha.
the master is very intimately familiar with the Matrix.
Very much so, yes.
So maybe maybe he stole it from Gallifrey
or found another newer copy of it or something that was in the works.
The Doctor refers to it as a Time Lord hard drive. So it's basically a sliced, hacked version of part of the Matrix. And basically the Master's using it the same way the Time Lords do, with a twist.
Little twist.
It's that humans, upon their death, their consciousness is loaded into the Matrix hack, where they're basically given a simulated cyber life, which basically heaps a lot of trauma and pain on them until they agree to this thing to wipe their emotions.
Is it like a game of The Sims? Like, can the master build a house around someone and choose what kind of couch they wear and take away the bathroom randomly to see and make them piss themselves?
More or less. Yes, he is purposely trying to make them piss themselves, make a mess, and set them on fire so that way they give in and willingly become his subjects.
Who knows? Maybe that's what the Sim actually is. That would make sense. After all, it is The Sims.
Does Missy build a pool and then take the ladder away?
No. What you do is you set up a narrow corridor for all of the people visiting the amusement park, and then have the corridor lead into the pool. The deep end first, of course.
Of course.
Then suddenly the entire corridor becomes the pool.
Yes, welcome to the afterlife. There's only one restaurant chain in the entire Nethersphere, and they're all crappy Denny's.
Ooh. At least the fries will be good, maybe.
Crappy Denny's.
Okay, so maybe 1 out of every 10 will be decent fries. Shit.
Anyway, no, the whole thing is to traumatize them to the point where they're willing to voluntarily write away their emotions, which basically cyber converts them without the need for an emotional inhibitor. The process then takes their edited, emotionless consciousness and downloads it back in their cyber-converted body. We are assuming that they're cold because they're in a freezer. Except what's the one thing we know about cyber bodies? Does anybody remember what happened in Age of Steel when the Doctor cut out the emotional inhibitor?
Oh, that's right. The first one said that it was cold too.
So cold.
Yeah.
Plus, these ones are
underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might already be too late for Danny.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Keep a trauma.
Then the Doctor travels the universe with the Cybermen.
Hey, he's already traveled with an Auton, so what the fuck? Why not?
And Clara's a Dalek.
True. Without
maybe that's where Handles comes from.
No.
Handles is Danny's head.
That just got dark.
That would be very dark. That would be very dark and wrong. Besides,
Be a companion.
His new nickname is Handles.
This is Danny Pink. From now on, we are going to call him Handles. Why are we going to call him Handles, Doctor? I'll explain later.
Well, considering what we think about Danny Pink, becoming a Cyberman might actually be a personality improvement.
Yes.
Speaking of Danny Pink, I have to say, I was marathoning the whole season of Doctor Who Extra the other night, and they kept calling him Mr. Pink, Mr. Pink, and I'm just picturing Steve Buscemi in all of these scenes. My mind is blown.
That would be a much better character.
Like, I'm picturing an Into the Dalek at the end if they had argued over whether or not to leave a tip.
Steve Buscemi. See, the thing is, I love Steve Buscemi as an actor. I haven't seen anything in him that he's been in that I've not liked. He will always eternally be Mapped to the Stars Eddie for me. Or Rockhound from Armageddon. What's your issue there, Matt?
No, just recalling some of his other stuff too. Yeah, I can't say I've actually seen a single thing that he's been in that I don't like.
It would at least make him a more colorful character, and not a fucking Mickey Smith clone with issues.
Yeah. No shit, right?
Yeah, speaking of which, we have one more episode to really wrap up the Danny, the thing that they've been foreshadowing the entire season with Danny.
Oh no, they've already covered
already dead. So how are they really going to follow through on that?
They dealt with it in this episode a bit, Bill.
They started to, but the next episode is supposed to delve more into that issue.
Mm-hmm.
But unless that somehow relates to him breaking his Cybermen programming or something, I don't see how it's going to matter anymore.
That's, like I said, that's the heap of trauma they were putting on Danny Pink. He has the guilt from killing this kid. And obviously it was an accident. He was told by his superiors to bomb this particular house or throw a grenade, and it turns out it wasn't a terrorist, it was a kid. And that's apparently what drove him to leave the military, was this guilt for killing this kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trauma they were hoping on inflicting on him to make him give up his emotions, was having to deal with this kid accusing him of being, the murderer. But they found something better, because instead they wound up dealing with Clara. Isn't that lovely? Clara might be inadvertently helping Danny to become a Cyberman. How's that for guilt on your conscience?
Yeah. Yeah, after the cliffhanger of this episode, I'm fairly certain we're not going to see Clara in Series 9. I'm pretty sure she's reached the end of her companionship.
Yeah.
Just about.
She's hitting she's hit several breaking points.
Yeah, and we were talking about the Doctor, crossing lines that the Doctor shouldn't cross. Clara just crossed a big one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure once this adventure is over and the Doctor's like, okay, whether you save Danny or not, it's like, okay, we can't do this anymore.
Either that, or I could see her looking at in the discussion in the Forest of the Night. I could see her after in a post Danny mourning stage where she's like, okay, I see what he was talking about. I'm done traveling and seeing new things. I'm going to focus on.
I really hope that's not what they do. I really hope that's not what they do, because that really makes the moral of this season is staying home and being domestic is the good thing.
I
don't go chasing waterfalls.
Like that. I just see. Just see it as sometimes there's a time for traveling around, and sometimes there's a time for dealing with the home life.
Although it would make Clara the new Tegan.
You take the good, you take the bad.
You take the rest, and there you have the facts of life.
Yeah.
Wow, we're all throwing in all kinds of references now.
What you talking about, Willis?
As I was saying before, don't go chasing waterfalls is essentially the motto of this season.
Don't go making waterfalls.
What? Did we ever figure out what the Master killed Dr. Chang with? Because I forgot.
The little device in her hand.
Because I was waiting to see a Dr. Chang doll.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, but I think they didn't want to have that reveal right yet. Because, yes, generally the Master's trademark...
Oh, yeah, because if they had revealed it at that point, then we would have known who it was.
Instantly, yes.
Hey, look, it's the Master. That's a tissue compression eliminator. That means it's the Master, but no. And the Doctor would have known it immediately.
Yeah.
Would have been, crap.
I think the only reason the Doctor didn't figure it out is because the Master's whatever had changed so much from changing genders, but...
Well, yeah, and there's a reason I didn't figure it out. Was because of the whole "he's my boyfriend" bit.
Yeah, and that was like... Moffat intentionally was fucking with fans' minds as to this. Like, some of those lines in there were made to, make you wonder, hey, is it Romana? Hey, is it Susan?
Yeah, that was...
Oh yeah, purposely, yes.
Like when she said, "The time lady you left for dead," and I'm like,
left Susan? Behind. Like,
I'm the one that you left behind, like Susan?
Romana?
No, you can't be Susan. That'd be stupid. Why would you be Susan?
Then, of course, he did leave the entire planet behind for dead, so pretty much... What'd you say?
Susan was never really a time lady. She never went to the academy.
How old do you have to be to graduate from the academy?
I'm not sure. But, I get the opinion that the Doctor...
Then again, yeah, he did say he wanted to bring her back for schooling, so we can assume she didn't have advanced schooling at that point.
Correct. And she was going to high school. So we can assume that Susan might have been just before the age of 8 when the Doctor took her, and they traveled for about 10 years prior to An Unearthly Child. For about 7 years.
So say 10's a little far.
Sorry, I meant 7. So she was just prior to 8. If she was 7 going on 8, just about the age where she would go to the academy. And the Doctor took her then. And I was actually thinking about this the other night. I'm not sure what led me to think about this. But, what would cause a man to take his granddaughter and flee from there? And I have to think that something bad happened to Susan's parents. Possibly something that was done as a deliberate message to the Doctor.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And it was just enough that he's like, I have to get out of here, take my orphaned granddaughter, and go.
Until she can be put somewhere else where she'll be safe.
Right. I'm kind of wondering if that's what happened. We don't know.
They still haven't explained that part, no.
No, they've never explained it. What originally caused him to flee Gallifrey? We know he was considered an exile. Or at least he considered himself an exile, and that's considered him a criminal.
That's also one of those things where not necessarily on the show because they shy away from it, but every writer of tangential material has their own take on it and kind of skews it one direction or another. I don't think they're ever going to want to come up with a canon explanation for that because it's one of those things that develops so many things.
But saying that something happened to Susan's parents, otherwise they would have been with the Doctor.
Presumably.
Or Susan would have stayed with them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense otherwise. But still, it's something that's in history. But it just came out. It just kind of reminded me of that. So I couldn't see it as being Susan. That would be too twisted. And they could have actually gotten Carol Ann Ford.
Yes.
Instead of getting Gomez.
Still would like to have Carol Ann Ford come back.
If even if it were Susan, like if I were Moffat, I wouldn't cast Carol Ann Ford just because it would be so freaking ridiculously obvious as soon as you announce the casting.
Not if they kept the casting a secret. had her do that under a pseudonym for the episode that she showed up, and have her face disguised for a good chunk of it. I wouldn't have done it the same way as he did now.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have been able to have her show up at the end of every episode.
You could have, but you wouldn't be able to see her face fully. She would have had like some kind of party mask or something.
And not actually have her credited, or have a pseudonym otherwise.
Have her credited under a pseudonym. Either way, if they were going to do Susan, that's the way I would have done it if I was Stephen Moffat. Romana was a distinct possibility. Because, of course, the last canon knowledge we have of Romana was her staying behind in E-space. According to Russell T. Davies, she came back and was president of Gallifrey for the first part of the Time War.
According to Russell T. Davies and Big Finish and the novel line and I think a few other things as well. So everything that's just shy of television canon
has pretty much put her back into there, yes.
Yeah, has had her as President Romana. But there's never been a canon statement of that.
Well, there's not been a canon for sure statement of
and then,
it. We've had
and then there
very
was the Doctor flying around space and time with the seal of Rassilon all over the TARDIS.
Yeah. Which immediately stopped upon learning how much of a dick Rassilon actually was. I mean, he knew he was a dick, but that was uber dickishness. But, no, what I'm saying is Moffat could have thought, well, there's no actual canonical information. We can reverse that. And something, in E-Space drove Romana insane.
Even, there's that, but there's even, in post-Day of the Doctor, post-Day of the Doctor, post-End of Time, you could say that she was on Gallifrey, was... possibly like driven mad by Rassilon or driven to anger and jealousy by Rassilon, escaped, found the Doctor had trapped them in a pocket universe and came back for revenge or something.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a little convoluted, but I think you could do it.
Yeah, it was doable. And then of course there was the theories, of course, that it was the Rani, which never quite made sense to me.
No, yeah. She never acted like the Rani.
Yeah, the Rani was a very dispassionate character.
Mm-hmm.
She really, to do that, she would have actually had to care about the Doctor enough. And the last time we saw her, mind you, he did thwart her scheme to control the universe. Yeah. She might be a little bit bitter.
The only time she ever sought him out was when she was collecting a bunch of brains to create a time thingy.
But then again, she did try to do petty vengeance in the episode that shall be named.
That wasn't an episode, that was a thing.
Shall not be named.
I think the novel said it was a fever dream.
Shall not be named. But yeah, she has only sought the Doctor once, and it was not for vengeance or to just up and kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Although that could have easily been an end goal anyways, depending on how things went.
Yeah, like I said, though, it never made sense with the dispassionate character of the Rani.
And it couldn't have been the Rani. This was someone who was very obviously keeping an eye on the Doctor.
But then again,
that said, with everything this year, it would have been really awkward if it was the Rani, because what was it? I think Pip Baker and Kate O'Mara both died this year.
Yeah.
Is that right? It would have been really, really awkward if we had a season plot about the Rani.
And didn't get the actual Rani because she could have still been available, and then all of a sudden, oops, at the last second.
Well, it makes sense to regenerate a time lady after 20 years. I mean,
that's what happened to Big Finish. Is they were doing a Rani audio adventure that Kate O'Mara was going to be in, and she died like literally 2 weeks before they were going to film or going to record it.
Yeah.
But she actually left something in her will saying she wants the character to continue under a new regeneration.
Yeah, because I think they were going to cancel it until they found that out.
Yeah. So even if they were planning on a new Ronnie for this, and they probably still are, it's probably still one of the things they have written in their notes somewhere.
Possible villain notes, Ronnie.
Possible
underlined,
villain notes.
highlighted.
So that's always a possibility coming out of the gate, is that we're going to see the Ronnie again. I just thought it would have been a huge coincidence, but hey, it's not like, Big Finish and the BBC Doctor Who production team are talking to each other, right?
Ah, no, never. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Wink is
right,
a
because they don't have any actors that work on apartments, do they? So, anyway...
we got about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Yep.
we got about 20 minutes. I'm kind of
let's see.
10 more in discussion before I discuss stuff that I've heard coming up in the trailers. Like I said, we're not rating this episode.
But we were talking before, at the when she's actually ready to announce herself as the Master, I'm pretty sure she was like either doing a Roger Delgado or like some sort of blend between Delgado and Ainley there at the end, where she was, the whole, try to keep up, like that whole sequence. I felt like she was really trying to go for as hard Master as she could.
Yeah, well, there were other scenes where she was like rolling her eyes at stuff the Doctor was doing.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean like her voice and things like during that. It seemed like it was channeling the previous Masters a little bit.
Oh, my dear Doctor, you have been naive. Come on now, Doctor. Missy? Mistress? I can't call myself the Master anymore.
Well, yeah, the first thing when she mentioned, it means mistress, my brain did not immediately go to Master again. Yeah. It's the fact that K9 always referred to Romana as I was like, oh God, it is Romana. After all, I couldn't go with Master, could I? Oh my God, it's So I had like a consecutive
I just thought of an alternate way that the Master Mistress was here. If the Seal of Rassilon, like if the ring from the End of Time, the ring from the End of Time and the Seal of Rassilon from Time of the Doctor are two Horcruxes that the Master had created, and that by using the Seal of Rassilon in Time of the Doctor,
I'm warning you.
Bill, I'm gonna hurt you.
See, with any other character that would be ridiculous, but with the Master it actually sounds plausible.
The Master, it's more like, it worked perfectly. I knew you would need it someday, Doctor.
So what you're telling me is the fact that the Master is actually Voldemort. Bill?
The Master sealed some of his personality and DNA away in the Seal of Rassilon.
I am now on Google Maps plotting a route to your house.
May I quote a classic rock song for you, Bill? Run for the hills.
And I will be coming specifically to kick you in the dick.
But I still could completely see it. I mean, this is the guy who survived in a ring, so at this point, all bets are off.
Hell, this is a guy who had a master plan that set him on fire and was supposed to kill him by burning him to death. And somehow survived that. And survived becoming a tiger person. And becoming a snail goop thing, which became a snake, which went to someone else's body. Don't know why.
Oh, speaking of the Master's Mistress's goal with working with the Daleks. With working with the Cybermen. Sorry, my brain spoiled itself. What was the whole point of why the Master was working with the Daleks way back in I forget the first part of the two-parter, Before Planet.
Because he was using the Daleks to betray, and was going to betray them anyway.
Yeah.
I remember that much, but yeah, I can't remember any of the specifics.
I
of
would
that
have to
particular
watch
story.
those episodes because I have not seen those episodes since the 80s, and I haven't read the novelizations since probably the early 90s.
I haven't seen those episodes since 2006 at the earliest.
I do remember when he decides to betray him, he's laughing, going, "Stupid pepper pots, stupid Daleks." But really, the Master has only ever dealt with the Cybermen that we know of on one other occasion. And being the Master,
Five Doctors.
Yes, completely, totally betrayed them. So the Master and the Cybermen aren't exactly the best of friends.
Well, then again, all those particular Cybermen that were there are all eliminated, and they probably wouldn't know a damn thing about it.
I feel like that would work as an ad-lib. The Master only worked with blank to betray them.
Pretty much. That's why I'm wondering what the end game plot is.
I mean, I feel like it's not too difficult to discern the Master's plan, but why the Cybermen were willing to work with someone that they knew were going to betray them, I'm kind of wondering what that is going to turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, now that we're at this point, I can definitely say, yeah, can the mighty Unit defeat Missy? Well, I don't know, how many times did Unit and the Master face off in the 70s?
And the Master won.
Times, and the Master was put in prison at least once.
Yes,
For
but
a day?
only due to the help of the Doctor, though.
For a serial break, at least. But I think it was the end of a season up to the beginning of the next season opener.
Still, it was also due to the help of the Doctor, and without the Doctor...
Unless
actually, the Doctor wasn't paying him enough attention, he managed to escape anyways. He was pretty much there just because he wanted to be there for a little while. Since
Unit is the Doctor Who equivalent of S.H.I.E.L.D., if they have that prison from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that Hydra ended up overtaking, but it was never taken by anyone, and Unit puts the Master there, I give it a week.
I give about a week.
God, now my crossover brain is hurting, Bill. The Daleks succeed in merging two universes, and suddenly, in a blink of an eye, Nick Fury becomes the head of Unit.
Which Nick Fury?
Samuel L. Jackson version, of course.
I want these motherfucking Daleks off of my motherfucking helipad.
Anyway, since
now we're at about 15 minutes ish.
What's that?
Now we got about 15 minutes ish.
All right, so let's actually do kind of a mini final thoughts here, since it's kind of not final thoughts, but pen final thoughts. And I want to just hear your basic thoughts of this first part of the two-parters. Tim, what did you think? Is Tim even here?
Tim!
Is Tim's mic still muted from before we started streaming?
Has Tim said any...
I'm not sure.
Is Tim even still on the call?
I'm here.
Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
there you are.
I'm here. Yes, I am. Hello.
Hello.
He's been upgraded.
Yeah. I don't know if Tim's been making any comments without that, or has his mic been, muted for, an hour.
Actually, no, he did make some comments here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
but,
what are your
Yes.
What are your pen final thoughts on this episode?
My pen final thoughts. Let's see where this goes. It's hard to make a final stand.
Not really your final thoughts. Just what do you think about it up till now?
Honestly, the revelation that the Missy was the Master wasn't as impactful to me as it was supposed to be, or like it was like they wanted it to be. It was like I thought that could have been done more better. But I did like the scenes with Claire and the doctor, and it was a very realistic portrayal of Clara as a woman grieving a loved one. So I did like that.
All right. Is that all you got, Tim?
Yep.
All right. Aaron, what are your thoughts up till now?
I really enjoyed it. Especially the whole reveal of Missy in the end, because that really kind of took me off my guard. Like pretty much the entire episode. So I did not know what to expect. Like especially, it started when they killed Danny, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next now? So, yep.
All right, Matt.
I think if I hit a good spike for me when they actually did hit Danny, I'm like, oh, interesting, yes, and do go on. Oh, he's not quite dead. Okay, keep going. It was definitely starting to go in some interesting places, and of course it's a bit of a darker episode, but you're kind of expecting that when you're about ready to build up for the second part of a two-part episode, to be honest. And pretty much everyone will agree that the whole Missy is the master threw us all for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
We were aware of the rumored possibilities of the master, but we were expecting somebody there to twirl his mustache, not to go around saying the doctor's their boyfriend.
All right, Bill.
This episode is a good explanation of why two-parters should not be removed from Doctor Who. I mean, it worked especially well as the beginning of a season finale because you can't have a regular two-parter with, essentially 42 minutes of straight cliffhangers and twists. But that did work really, really well for this episode. And it really put the next episode up on a pedestal. Of course, it really ruins all of that effort if the next episode falls off of the pedestal, but if the next episode succeeds with all of the build-up that it was given, then it's all worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same opinion. This episode, taken by itself, is the best we've seen out of Stephen Moffat this season. It's the best we've seen out of Stephen Moffat, I think, in the last two seasons, bar Day of the Doctor. It is really good writing, really good characterization, and I watched the entire episode with my jaw on the floor for a good chunk of it. The casting of Missy as the Master, I think, is brilliant. It has a good chance, depending on where it's going, of her being probably second highest Master of all time after Delgado. I'm sorry, it's very hard to top the Delgado Master.
But we will find out after next week's episode.
Yes. Yeah. And that is a good... Yes. The way they have set this up, this entire episode, it's why I can't rate it. Everything on this episode lynches on next week's episode. It lynches on how it works. It lynches on what's to be done. This episode will either be the best two-parter we've had in years,
or the most disappointing season finale we've had yet,
or the most disappointing two-parter we've had in years.
Mm-hmm.
If we're lucky, they'll really shock us, and they'll convert all of UNIT to Cybermen and leave a massive cliffhanger for Series 9.
You mean the Christmas special?
If Moffat does that, if he leaves us on a cliffhanger like that, not completing this story, and if he completes the story and gives us a cliffhanger for the Christmas special, I'm fine with that. If he does not finish this and tries to hold everything off until the Christmas special, I need to hurt Moffat severely.
Mm. That's true. Yeah,
the pounding shall continue.
I was kind of thinking more on the route of where some shows will use the finale to completely change the world that they're set in for the next season. But yeah, that doesn't really work with Doctor Who, especially with the Christmas special coming.
Mm-hmm. It really doesn't.
Doing it at the end of the Christmas special, however, is the wiser opinion on that.
Yeah, but we'll see on that. But no, I mean, the next episode is going to really make or break it. I'm really hoping that Moffat's put a lot of effort into this, a lot of work. He has a lot of things he has to explain out, and if he fails to finish an explanation with an hour and a half to do it,
then we throw our hands up in the air and he'll never finish anything properly.
Right. But if he does manage to explain everything, we get the end goal, we get everything, we can come out of this very happy Doctor Who fans. This episode, if I was going to rate it by myself, would probably have been the first 5 I've given since Day of the Doctor. But I can't rate it without knowing the conclusion, because that deals with everything.
Yeah, right now, for me, it's teetering off 4, but that's also because I'm still waiting to see what the final act is, and the final act will definitely affect the number for this one.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I'm just rating this episode on its own. There's nothing wrong with this episode, and it has enough jaw-dropping revelations to send it up into awesome for me. But it's like I said, I can't, because I'm sitting here the entire time waiting for the other shoe to drop from Moffat.
But by the way, I'm going to make the prediction 5.5 million overnights for Death in Heaven. That's going to be my prediction. Dark Water was the highest overnights that we've had since Deep Breath.
Okay. So now that we've discussed our final thoughts on this, I'm going to take a few minutes and tell you a few things I've noticed coming up in the trailers.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said in the opening thing, when the Cybermen are walking, Missy says the dead are coming up from the graves. This is literal. We are basically looking at a Cyberman version of Zombie Apocalypse.
That'll also make them the most threatening they've been in a while.
Oh yes, this is definitely putting some threaten back in the there. One of the trailer scenes, and this is all spoilers, by the way. So if you don't want any spoilers, turn off the podcast now. We'll see you next week.
They did it by going back in time to the 21st century. Oh, no, wait. It's not. It is the 21st century. Okay, so these are the Borg coming back in time to assimilate the dead.
Kind of.
Hey, so maybe Picard will be in the next episode.
Well, do remember the fact that Missy is a Time Lord and apparently has set this up to be doing this since the beginning of time, essentially.
She's at the very least been doing it since Robot of Sherwood, I think.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The Promised Land thing should be part of this.
Yep. It's been doing this for a long time.
Oh, shit, that's right. They crashed in the time of the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So there's been a large cyber conversion going on for an exceeding long time, and now they're all coming up. One of the scenes that we see is Doctor and I think Unit escaping on an airplane in the sky, which the Doctor looking out in the window kind of has the Twilight Zone thing of the monster on the wing, only the monster in this case is a Cyberman. Something that you haven't noticed that I've heard is I have actually heard the Cybermen speak in the upcoming episode, and it's a new voice.
Oh.
Might still be Nick Briggs, but it's a new modulation.
So it's not the Nightmare and Silver ones then?
Didn't those still sound like Cybermen?
I think they were a little deeper than we had heard before, but otherwise, yeah.
Because this sounded more like the Dalek ringtone modulation, only about 5 or 6 octaves deeper.
I think in Nightmare and Silver it was almost like a Supreme Dalek type of deal.
This was deeper than that, I think.
Okay.
I only have heard them speak in the radio trailer, which you can find if you search around YouTube enough. But it didn't sound familiar to me, but I haven't watched Nightmare and Silver in a while. As we've seen, the cyber forms that we are seeing are the the Iron Men Cybermen, as we call them. Though I think there's been some minor touch-ups to the face plates.
Not that I'm aware of.
Minor touch-ups, because I thought there was still, in the Nightmare and Silver ones, there was still the jaw or the cheekbone lines that they had before, and those don't seem to be present in these. They're more of the flat cyber faces that we're familiar with from the...
No, these still have cheekbones.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm looking at images of them right now.
I thought these were the Nightmare and Silver.
These are exactly the same as the Nightmare and Silver ones. They've just added a few more.
Yeah, well, they've had time to produce a whole bunch of new suits.
Yeah, they've had time and pinched pennies here and there to make some more suits.
Although you wouldn't think of it by the production quality that we've seen this season or this series, because most of the stuff
I'm still wondering if maybe either they switched production houses because the last one was being so bad, and still only had a few leftover effects from them at the beginning of the season, and then switched to the new ones in the midst of the season, or if maybe they finally figured out a better way to get in contact with their special effects house and actually plan things better. Because being able to contact them and make sure that the plans are going smoothly is the key essential to making an effects-driven show like this actually work. That being said, also re-seeing some of the footage for the Cybermen for this episode while editing the stuff for the opener, I could actually see where they were doing some split-screen stuff because I do the exact same thing on my online show. But then again, that's just me going, oh, I know that trick of Adobe.
Yeah, they haven't really revealed anything on Missy's plans or anything like that, but it looks like a good chunk of the next episode is basically going to be them running from the cyber invasion, which is global.
Then all the cyber brains release Toglophane that fly into the air.
I hope not. I really hope not. But yes, and of course there's we still have the whole thing of Clara saying that Clara Oswald has never really existed, and I'm still not sure what's up with that.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember that Missy has been paying a very close attention to Clara.
She's not Clara Oswald, she's Clara Merlin.
Kick you in the dick!
Just heard that over a microphone slap.
Kick you in the dick.
Apparently Bill can't go to sleep at night without more threats from Randy about kicking him in the dick.
On that bombshell, we've hit about 2 hours, so...
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
We will go... we will be back next week to discuss the finale and all the ramifications and everything. Same time, I think, and that will be our last Series 8 podcast until the Christmas special. We will be doing other stuff in the interim.
Yes, with only 1 or 2 breaks here or there. So, till then, see you all later, and good night.
See you next time.
Good night, everybody.